Hello, everyone. Jenny here from Alexis Dietetics, and today our event is Dietitian Dream Jobs, why clinical isn't your only option, but that's great too. We try to make sure, clinical is also a great option, but there are many other things outside of clinical, and we are going to dive into both clinical options as well as unconventional or non-clinical options as well today. Very, very excited to talk about this topic because first of all, we have a free ebook called Dietitian Dream Jobs, 75 Careers in Dietetics. And it's our #1 free resource that's downloaded from our website. I think future dietitians are really interested to know what the possibilities are in the field of dietetics. And I also think that the amount of different types of jobs and careers you can have in dietetics makes that, that's one of my favorite things about it. And I've had so many different careers in dietetics, even in the first 15 years of my career, 14, 15 years, that make me just know I'm always going to have something that I can get into, something new I can try if what I'm currently doing, besides running Alexis Dietetics, of course, isn't, still aligned with me or something that I want to keep doing. All right, so we're going to get into all of that. I encourage you to share if you have any other jobs that I forgot. I didn't list every single possible type of job in this presentation, but if you want to add to a job in the chat that I missed, feel free to do that. But we'll get going into the content, and then I will have time for questions both throughout the presentation as well as after. So feel free to, throw things in the chat. I'll be watching that throughout. As a really brief introduction, if this is your first time attending a free event with us, so Alexis Dietetics was founded in 2009. I started it when I was a future dietitian, and we've really just always been dedicated to meeting the needs of future dietitians. We do that in a lot of different ways. So first, our free resources, like I said, our free Dietitian Dream Jobs ebook, which I put in the chat in the link there. We have application toolkit with free resources. We have an exam toolkit that's been downloaded like 6,000 times. We have virtual events like this one every single month. I also run a podcast called Dear Future Dietitian, which you can get on all the different podcast players, Spotify, Apple. And we are on like our 42nd or 43rd episode. So there's plenty of episodes to catch up on or binge if you want to go back and listen to those. And then how we actually help, besides our free resources, is we have 3 different offerings. So #1 is our Get Matched coaching. This is for admissions coaching. Even if you're not going through the match process, if you're applying to a graduate program, we have an admissions coaching program that we've been doing since 2011, and we have 100% success rate with that. And we help people get into not only dietetic internships, but graduate programs in nutrition and dietetics. And then we also have Pass Class, which is our complete RD exam prep solution. We're very proud of this because it's based on the feedback of over 500 RD to Bs that used other resources and didn't pass. We created this all-inclusive program that addresses all those reasons why they didn't pass using other tools. So we teach a method on how to study. We give you the exact study plan and roadmap. There's a community with access to a tutor. There's live classes every week. There's video review session recordings and a full comprehensive study guide. And it's really the complete solution. So that's Pass Class. And then the third is the Dietetics Club. And this is new this year. This is our virtual wellness club. We have over 100 members right now after our first month of launch, and we hope to keep adding new members every month. But this is going to address all the different areas of wellness and create fun social events and things that you can attend to take care of yourself as you're going through the process of becoming an RD to B. And as a quick, little pitch on the Dietetics Club, because it is new, so people don't know about it. The whole goal of this is balance, connection, and fun with fellow future dietitians. So we have virtual events. We had one already, our kickoff event a couple weeks ago, and then we have a club chat at the end of this month, actually this week, that we're doing, where you can attend on Zoom and go and have virtual networking and chats with fellow RD to Bs. Then we have a monthly newsletter that they get. There's also access to our team to ask questions, and then a member directory, which people have really liked, to be able to see it's kind of like a mini LinkedIn for future dietitians, and you get to contact and reach out to your fellow dietitians and make friends and connections, because this field is really small. And so the more connections that you can have, even as a student, the better off you will be. And it's a really great way to do that. And then you do get a bonus course for getting hired, either to get experience as a dietetics student or in your first job as a dietitian. The agenda for tonight is 7 dietitian job categories. I broke them down and I'm going to share what those are, talk a little bit about each one. And then I also have some advice, because yes, I can tell you like, here's all the possible jobs, but I want to help you take some action, like after you hear all of these things, and say, okay, well, how do I then explore what I might be interested in? And then how do you break into that interest area, especially in harder to get into areas like sports nutrition or, even clinical or nutraceutical sales, which you'll find out about. And finally, I do have a little takeaway message, just based on the experiences that I've had kind of going for that dream job, or the idea of the dream job. We say that word or that phrase because it resonates with people. Obviously, people use that phrase to be like, oh, that'd be a dream. But I do want to give you some life advice on that and how you might approach that in a way that's not going to put a lot of pressure on you and leave room for flexibility and for kind of the unknown as you go throughout your career. Here are the 7 job categories that I want to cover today. So we have, let me just, fix this. Okay, so the 7 dietitian job categories that we have are clinical, community, food service and management, academics, industry, specialties, and entrepreneurship. So specialties and entrepreneurship are kind of like, I just threw those in there because they can fit within any of these categories, as well as entrepreneurship. You can kind of make entrepreneurship out of any of these categories as well, but they deserve their own special section. So we're going to dive into each of these, and also know that there are many more categories than what I've listed here that we can actually cover. Clinical is the first category. When we think of clinical, we think of things in healthcare. And so that would be inpatient, which is like working in a hospital, in any type of unit or specialty. So you have children's hospitals, you have typical teaching hospitals, community hospitals. And then within that, you might be on the floor for ICU or oncology or surgery or general medicine, or NICU or PICU. So those are the clinical roles. And then outpatient would be more, of course, outpatients, and then not acute care. And in that, there's a lot of different specialties, like you have prenatal or OB/GYN, or you have diabetes clinics or weight management, bariatrics. Those are some ones that come to mind, oncology as well. And so those would be more like you're counseling patients, as opposed to inpatient, which is more acute care and taking notes and monitoring patients in those settings. Then we have home health and assisted living, which would be more towards the geriatric population, or for those that have home health, or people that have tube feedings, or like NG tubes, G tubes, TPN, things like that you'd be monitoring. Dialysis clinics. DaVita is a big employer of dietitians, but there's plenty of other companies for dialysis there. And what I've heard that dietitians really like about dialysis, for example, is that they get to build relationships with their patients because they see them more often. The patients are sometimes coming in, and I haven't worked in this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's at least 2, if not 3, 4 times a week, depends on the case, but we'll say at least weekly, where they're able to form relationships with those clients, and they really enjoy that. And nutrition is such a big part, like it is with all of them, but especially with dialysis, to get their diet right for that. And then finally, I included private practice in clinical, because you can have a private practice that sort of functions like an outpatient clinic, where you are doing a lot of MNT type counseling and getting in different specialties that you might see in a outpatient, like hospital, outpatient clinic as well. All right, so that's the clinical world. If anyone has any questions on clinical and that overview, let me know. Otherwise, we'll go on to the next here, which would be community. And so community type jobs will be things in community health centers, nutrition education, women, infants, and children, nonprofit organizations, food banks, for example, or like nonprofits that deal with food insecurity or with food delivery. I know God's Love We Deliver is in New York City, and they are a big organization. They have dietitians on their team. And then anything in the public health realm, even working for the government, for the state, for the federal government, there are jobs there. We have a Get Match coaching coach on our team who works for the federal government in the world of public health as a dietitian. So yeah, that is a community, and of course, a lot different. Sometimes people will get their master's in public health if they want to get into the community world. Not necessary to do that, but you do see that often if dietitians do want to specialize in that area. Right. And then food service management. So food service management, I combine the two. They can be different. Usually there's a management role for a dietitian in food service, and then there's non-food service management related jobs as well. But we'll say, for the purposes of this, the main idea is that you could be a director of food service at a hospital or at a school or a school district where you're overseeing the quantity foods production and handling all the systems. I know when I was at my internship in Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, that hospital, Massachusetts General, had the largest food service operation in the entire state of Massachusetts. So they were serving the most people of any facility or organization. And I remember there were many like leadership dietitians that were leading different components of that. There was one that was a dietitian that was a manager of just the retail. So just the retail food service operations that served the staff or served visitors. That was a whole world. And then you had the dietitian that dealt with the patient food services. So the people staying there, of course, and she would be dealing with the menu and creating that and redoing the menu or making changes and that whole world. And then even in that level, then there was the purchasing manager who was a dietitian who was dealing with sales reps and people that wanted to sell in their product into the largest food service organization in the state. And so they would deal with those meetings all day and deal with purchasing and getting the best price and dealing with budget and all of that. I feel like there's another, retail, patient food services, the purchasing world, and then even in the diet office itself. So managing the food service workers and people that work there. And then even in the like separate retail spaces or like throughout the different campuses of Mass General, there was its own manager of just those spaces. So lots of opportunity in food service and management. One of our tutors, Zach, who is our tutor for Pass Class, and he runs our Pass Class community. He is a food service manager director for Illinois State University, which is a college, of course. And so that's another area that you can get into is with schools, whether that's college, high school. Usually with high school, they might manage multiple, like in a school district, you might manage multiple food service operations, or in a college, there might be multiple directors there because of the scope of that work. Long-term care also will have food service managers, and then hospitality. So thinking just even in restaurant world or working for a healthy restaurant. I know for myself, I got into this where I ran a smoothie shop for 7 months as a dietitian, and I had my food service manager's license. I was able to train and run that show and be able to handle all the management side of it. Hiring and HR and training and customer service, and systems and all of that stuff that you learn in those classes. So yeah, that would be food service and management. A lot of times people, if you really like the business side of it, you can learn a lot of great business skills by taking a food service management job. And a couple of the employers that tend to be big employers of this would be the big food service companies, which would be Sodexo, Aramark, and Morrison, just to name three that come to mind, where they employ a lot of food service management dietitians because they have contracts in a lot of organizations. So, okay. And then academics. So academics being, if you do want to teach or be an educator, there's the opportunity to be a professor at a college, a community college. Even some high schools will have dietitians as teachers, and then you can be a director of a program, of a dietetics program. You can do research if you're working for a college or university. Being a tutor even counts as academics, where especially we have 5 tutors on our team, and they tutor for the RD exam. And then educators in general, if it's not a professor, but maybe more of an instructor for a college or a class, that is also an option. And a lot of opportunity there for virtual educating as well, or running an online class. Then we get into industry. Industry would be things outside of healthcare and things that are kind of more in the public sector, I would describe it as. With this, regulatory is one area that I didn't know about, but I actually had two friends in my dietetic internship that went into regulatory affairs, where they were kind of like, I mean, I don't know every extent of their job, except that it was, one of them worked for Dunkin' brands, so Dunkin' Donuts, the Dunkin' brand, and, worked on teams where they were dealing with all the regulations and compliance that was needed for nutrition labeling, and even marketing and contributing as like a registered dietitian expert for that company. And then I have another dietitian friend who is the director of nutrition for Trader Joe's. And she was in my internship class. Her name is Jamie. And she oversees the entire nutrition department for Trader Joe's. So you have that in retail as well, but I would say her role is a little bit more in the regulatory world, whereas then you can also work in a grocery store in more of like a nutrition education and customer education role, where you might be doing events or marketing or things to increase sales for that retail operation, or work with brands to help promote their products within the retail or grocery store world. So yeah, those are a couple of ways. And then, so there's nutrition labeling, which you could work for companies or tech companies that do this, and then you are kind of in their world. I know Epic is one. I know a dietitian that went from food service management into nutrient labeling and worked with food analysis type companies. And then health food companies. I have another friend in my internship who went on to work for Eating Well magazine. And then she is now working at Healthline, which is that very popular website with peer-reviewed, medically reviewed articles. So Healthline is an opportunity. They're always hiring writers. Then we have corporate wellness. Corporate wellness is a lot of nutrition education, and it could be like health screenings or public speaking or creating programs that keep employees engaged in wellness initiatives, and then also like individual counseling. I am currently doing this health coaching training called Well Coaches, and in that I have a cohort of 40 or so people, and in that there's 3 dietitians that are getting the same training that I am. And one of them actually is a dietitian for the employees at Meta. So Meta being Facebook, Meta. And so she does corporate wellness and for them, and she meets with Meta employees and is their personal dietitian. So that's certainly an area where there's a lot of need, where companies are investing in having personal dietitians and having that accessible to their employees. Then you have sales, and sales is one that people are very surprised about, that it's even an opportunity. But with sales, you will see this often in companies like Nestle or Abbott, where those are just 2 popular ones that come to mind, because they hire dietitians that where they want to sell for their formulary or formulas for pediatrics, for example, and they want to sell into hospitals. And so they'll hire dietitians who will do the sales part of it, trying to make those sales, but also the education on how to use the product clinically. So it makes sense that someone would know how to do it, how to use it, and then go and sell it. I know a classmate from college that started in clinical. She did pediatric ICU, and also I think she was in the NICU, and then she was hired for a sales role and became basically, I would call it like a nutraceutical sales rep as opposed to a pharmaceutical sales rep, but same idea. And now then she manages, she can move up from there and manage a sales team. And that's one that can be very rewarding if you do love sales, and you can get paid very, very well in sales. Really, like that's the case in any sales role, like across any industry, where the sky's kind of the limit in a lot of that, because you might have a base salary, but then have a lot of incentives and bonuses and rewards and all of that to increase your income potential. So, and I just, when I posted about this event, I got a LinkedIn message from someone who said, make sure that you tell them about sales for dietitians, because it is definitely an unknown area, and one that, again, if that is something that you think you would love, you meet people all day. It's all about relationships. It's all about, especially if you have a product that you really believe in, it can be really rewarding, and could be a great fit. So, and of course, those companies will provide all of the training, and you'll be able to like skill develop there. I would say pharmaceutical or nutraceuticals, but then also supplement companies. That is another area where dietitians would be hired as well for that. And then finally, I did mention already, but retail and grocery, where you are kind of like the store's dietitian, or maybe a dietitian for multiple stores. I believe Hy-Vee is one that hires a lot of dietitians, and this was really popular, although I feel like it peaked maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I saw more dietitians in this role, and then now I feel like only a few chains of grocery stores still do this, but of course it could always keep changing, as trends change. All right, and then let's get into specialties, because that is where I didn't know how to make it its own category, because you can do all of these specialties within all of these different categories. And I pulled these topics from the Dietetics practice group list that's on the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website. This is, these are like the themes of the ones. I think I did forget one. I just remembered I was supposed to add it. And that one was environmental nutrition. So sustainable environmental nutrition can be a specialty. But then these ones like diabetes, pediatrics, prenatal, women's health, digestive disorders, things like celiac, sports nutrition, in all sorts of different areas, college, professional, the army, military, functional medicine or functional nutrition, health coaching, eating disorders, or behavioral. It's kind of an umbrella term, but like the behavioral health dietetic practice group is where that would be under, but it covers that. Oncology, weight management, nutrition support, so more advanced clinical skills, cardiovascular, culinary, renal, nutrition informatics. There's also entrepreneurship, which I'll talk about next, and even in business, like business and communications is another dietetic practice group. I like going there. So whenever we're coaching our Get Matched coaching clients, a big part of that is helping them figure out what they want their future to look like, so that they can properly communicate that to directors. A big common mistake is that students will be like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I'm waiting for the internship to find out. But I would highly encourage you not to do that, and to rather research the field right away and start to get exposure and experience to these areas, so that you can give yourself a head start on what you like and don't like about the field or these different areas, so that you can kind of jump in with more knowledge into your first career, rather than trying to figure it all out through a job. You could just do a lot more as a student, where you could have a couple or a few different experiences every year. That say if you do one experience every 3 months, that allows you to get that exposure and that taste. instead of going into a job and trying one thing for 1 year, if you stay at a job for 1 year, or even like 6 months, and you can't really explore as much. But we'll get into how you can get that experience in a few minutes. So did I miss any specialties? If you see any specialties I didn't put down, feel free to put them in the chat box. And there are more than this, and there's plenty of different niches, things. If you probably see on Instagram or TikTok, you see dietitians that have really specific things that they do, even within these specialties. So they niche down even further. For me, I started in functional medicine more so in my first job working for a private practice. Then I got into more so sports nutrition from there. Okay, and then a question, any dietitian opportunities in the developmentally disabled population? Yes, definitely. Trying to think, the dietetic practice group that would be under would probably be behavioral health. I believe they would have like subspecialties. So that would be a good dietetic practice group to reach or to research, and then try to find dietitians that are members there on the board that you can try to network with. But yes. And then, is there much of a specialty niche of dietitians focusing on cognitive function? Yes, and I would say where I see that, just from me initially reading that, would be well, private practice for sure, but then also corporate wellness, because like the point of corporate wellness is, of course, to keep healthcare costs down for their employees, but also to have them perform at a higher level. And so if their cognitive health is better and they can focus better, then that's a great angle. And I think some corporate wellness dietitians will take that angle to say, hey, focus better and have a higher cognitive function with nutrition. And so then that can be a specialty there. All right. And finally, entrepreneurship. I will have the business boot camp next month, which we'll dive very deep into all of this, but at least for now, and the business boot camp is free and it's on our free events page. You can register for that now, but entrepreneurship in general, just the subcategories of that, I would say, are private practice, if that's either self-pay or insurance-based private practice. Then there's dietetics related support services, which I would think about like that you might help a business. So there's business coaches for entrepreneurs, dietitian entrepreneurs. There's people that are virtual assistants for private practices. There's people that write or support business in other ways, like copywriting or helping behind the scenes. So I just put that as another category because that's really popular right now. And then media and brand work, where brands are paying you to create content or to be a spokesperson or to do media slots using their products. And that is a whole world as well. I think next week I'm recording a podcast with our former Get Match coaching coach, Kristen Carley, who is a media dietitian. And we're going to talk all about how she does that, how she makes money, what her job is like. And so this is a really good one if you love recipes and recipe development and content creation, because it tends to revolve around that. And then that could usually lead to like more writing and kind of this next entrepreneurship level, which they don't have to happen together, but the writing and communications piece is pretty heavy when you're working with brands. But then you also could think about writing for like being a freelance writer and writing on your own and creating a business out of that. But I will dive into the business boot camp next month, because I have a lot to share around private practice world, because I've personally just launched a private practice, taking insurance, doing it nationwide, and it's wild. And I want to share my story and what I've been learning so far. So, because I'm pretty much a new, I'm kind of like a rookie. I am a rookie private practice owner, and it would be just like you if you started, private practice early on in your career. So we'll get more into that later. All right, so those are the 7 categories. And now I want to talk about how to explore your interests. And so here's a few tips that I think are important. And this does take time, this does take effort, but it's exciting because I think like some pivotal moments of my future dietitian career were discovering that certain jobs even existed. And this is why I think we had so many people sign up for this. I think we had 600 people register for this, and they'll get the recording, but it is crazy like how many different opportunities there are that you don't hear about in school. And it's because in school you have to learn the curriculum, and they can only teach you so many things. And they're focusing on the most popular, which would be clinical, mostly food service management and community. And there's not enough time in the curriculum, to cover everything. And there's only certain topics on the RD exam. So I completely understand just how it is that they can't get into all of those areas. You might still have like some exposure, or there might be some resources that your teachers are giving you, which is amazing. But I do think you have to take this into your own hands and see what is happening in the real world with dietitians. So the number 1 tip is using LinkedIn. Even if you just typed in dietitian and then filtered by your location, and you could see 100 LinkedIn profiles of dietitians, and you would click on each one and you would see all of the different jobs that they've held, the current job that they have, the companies they work for. This is amazing and a really easy way to quickly see, like, get a sampling of all of the different types of jobs that you can have as a dietitian. So I really like that idea. And you can even put in like clinical dietitian in your area, or not even your area, just in general. And you can see and any other keywords that you're just wanting to see the companies they work for. And they might even describe their job, because usually that's what people will do on LinkedIn. They'll put even bullet points of their responsibilities, which gives you even more detail about what it's like to have that job. And then you can think about messaging them and reaching out and seeing if they'd be willing to speak with you. The next is this website, which it's not as updated anymore, but it's an amazing archive of RD profiles that was done by this dietitian. I actually forgot her name, but she started it like 5 years ago, I think. And so there's over 100 profiles of dietitians on this website called whatrdsdo.com. And then on our Instagram, Alexis Dietetics, we have been doing this more, where we're doing day in the life posts from dietitians in a lot of different specialties. So you can go to our feed to see those and check that out. And then we also have our free ebook, which is the link in the chat here, the first link that I put in for our free Dietitian Dream Jobs ebook, which will have 75, and I tried to cover a bunch of them here, but 75 career titles, and you can learn more about those as well. So that's how I would say you explore your interests. And if you're thinking, how much time should you invest in that? I would say, summer is an amazing time to dive into your interests, after you graduate, and just spend a lot of time. I would say, gosh, over the course of a summer, maybe like 20 hours of just reading profiles, researching. That might be like 1 or 2 hours a week. And also trying to have conversations or reading through their websites or whatever it is, to understand as much as you can about their background. Because you might, dietitians are busy, so they might not be able to speak with you, but you can do a lot of research on your own just by reading their LinkedIn or going to their website. And then I get this question a lot, like, okay, I know I'm interested in X area, so then how do I get experience in that? How do I break into that specialty? And here's my strategy. So when I was a student, I was interested in a lot of different things, and that's okay too. You could have multiple interests. So I liked public relations, I liked clinical research, and I liked sports nutrition. And then I also knew I wanted to have my own business. I joined a dietetic practice group called Nutrition Entrepreneurs. That was my way of getting into the entrepreneurship space. And I tried to make connections, email everyone on the board. So the board, you can see their names and who's on the board for these organizations. And they're going to be great connectors, because they're going to know people that are in the organization that could maybe be a good fit for you. And they're just willing to help, because they're volunteering for that leadership role. And that's what they really want to do. They really want to help people, help their student members, help all their members succeed and reach their next goal or whatever it is that they want. So definitely join a dietetic practice group, or a professional organization, because there are a few that aren't related to the academy. Like if you're interested in sports, there's the CPSDA, and that's not academy affiliated, but an amazing professional organization for sports dietitians. And then sending pitch emails to dietitians. So I get a lot of emails. When I was in sports, working in sports, I got a lot of emails from students. And one of the biggest mistakes that students made is that they didn't tell me anything about themselves, and they didn't make it like a win-win situation. They were just asking for something. And you might think, well, what do I have to give to a dietitian, But if you can lead with value and say, hey, do you need someone to do research, or to help with your blog, your social media, or anything with your business or with your patients that I can do behind the scenes, or nutrition education handouts, whatever it is, you want to try to lead with value and then get to be able to get something in return. So, hey, I can do these projects for you, and in return, and maybe if it's just like a few hours or a handful of hours, like then asking for mentorship in return. Or if you want to just approach it where they hire you and you actually have a paid job, that would be awesome too. There's no harm in trying to do that, but maybe it's a lower investment on both ends, where you're just wanting to maybe do a couple projects, and then they're able to give you advice, mentorship, connections, whatever it is, to help you in that way. And then that's a win-win situation. You also want to get experience on your campus. So I say this not because you would then want to get it in your specialty area, but because when you go to try to pitch yourself to dietitians in specialty areas, and I'll just say sports, it is so much better if you have experiences with dietitians before you do that. And you're going to be like, well, how can I get experience with the dietitian if I don't have experience with the dietitian? That's where starting on your campus, where they're more likely to hire you. There's less competition, right? Because you're just kind of competing against the students in your class. You will have more opportunity there. And that's exactly what I did, where I was like, I didn't think about going out and getting internships with all these dietitians until I first got experience with the dietitians in my nutrition department. So I was a research assistant for a couple of dietitian professors. I also was a TA for a sports nutrition class, and I got another experience in food service management through my professor as well. So all I did was I emailed every single professor in the nutrition department. There's a directory on your school's website with their contact information, so you'll be able to get all of that. Some of these people I never met before because I never had classes with them. And I emailed and said, I'm really looking for experience. Do you have any opportunities for next semester? And then you could say preferably paid, if you want it to be paid, or you need to have it be paid. And so I did that to 20 people. And then I ended up getting like 3 experiences from that. And then the next semester got 3 different experiences. And they're never like, usually they weren't like really a high amount of hours, but they exposed me to different areas and got my resume bulked up, so that when I went to go pitch myself to the Blackhawks dietitian, the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian, I had this experience to back it up with, and she was more likely to then take me as her intern because she saw I had like these skills that I developed. I get that everyone's schedules are really different. You might have a lot of obligations or family or whatever is going on. So I want you to know I'm aware of that, and you're going to just do the best you can. But I do want to point that out, that can be a strategy if you do have the bandwidth, or if you are really looking to get experience. That was my strategy, is just sticking with your campus. And if you're a distance student or online, then you might think of still even getting virtual experiences with professors, even if it's not in person. And finally, creating a vision board. We talked about vision boards in the Dietetics Club, and why I say this is I think it's really important to have a vision of what you want. So if you want an internship with a certain dietitian, having that image that you see every day, there's something, it's not really about like the manifestation of like the vision board. It's more so about the process of raising the awareness of what you want in the future. And through that, it's positive psychology, so that the likelihood that you'll actually make that happen increases. And so you're just trying to play with your psychology to help you reach your future goals and not feel discouraged by them. And the last few things here. So I wanted to give my advice on pursuing a dream job and give you a little story, because I went through this, and obviously I'm older than, or not older maybe than everyone, but just longer on in my career, assuming everyone here is a future dietitian. We might have some dietitians that are on this event, but I wanted to share that you can have, there's a lot of things, but like I had dream jobs when I was a student, specifically around working for professional sports teams. And I remember being very clear about that. I remember having a vision board and having the logos of the sports teams that I wanted. I remember trying to make connections with every single Chicago pro sports dietitian, and tried to get sports experience by networking with my sports nutrition professor when I was in school. And, and that was what I did. But what in reality, I got an experience with the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian when I was a student. I was hired with her and was her assistant for 4 years as a very part-time job. And then it was 4 years later, 5 years later, that I got a role with the Chicago Cubs as their minor league dietitian. And then 2 years later, got the role with the Chicago Bulls as the team dietitian, like the head person. And that was the dream job. And I just recently retired from my dream job after doing professional sports for 13 years and 5 years with the Chicago Bulls as my last job. And I remember thinking, it was really hard to leave for a lot of different reasons and to move on, even though I have some very exciting things that I'm working on now. But I remember thinking it's really important that students know that you might not have that one dream job for your whole career, and you can have multiple dream jobs and kind of want every job to feel like a positive experience, but it might not happen. So what I'm saying here is you, first of all, want to know what the real life day-to-day experiences and responsibilities are of whatever you think is the dream job. I think in sports, some people are very surprised by how much food service is involved in sports nutrition, how not a lot of counseling is involved. It depends on the situation, the team and everything, but I didn't do a lot of one-on-one counseling, like sit down things. It was a lot of food service management, working with personal chefs and our team chefs and everything to get that all good. And so and it could be different based on different teams or different colleges or whatever the role is. So you want to know, like, what would my actual day-to-day life look like if in that dream job? And that's where the research comes in. And then you also want to reflect on what you're actually really good at, what your desires are, what you really want, regardless of what society or your parents or, other people around you say that you should do. A lot of people will tell you to do clinical. You must do clinical for 2 years. And that is not true. You do not need to do clinical for 2 years. So you want to think about that. And then also your financial goals and, what I know that there's the underpay and undervalue of the dietitian that's happening, but there are certain areas, not even just entrepreneurship, but other areas where you can get paid better. And so you want to reflect on what your goals are there and dive into that if that's important to you, how much money you're making. And then have a clear filter for what you want your job to entail. I call this the life filter, where you're really getting clear on, do I want to work from home? Do I want to work with multiple people? What kind of things do I want to do in my day? What areas of dietetics do I want to work in? What's population? Like, getting clear can help you. And maybe you won't get exactly that, but at least you will be informed, and you're not approaching your career like, I just want to get any job. Of course, there's situations and I hear this from people, if like there's, depending on parts of the country that they're in, where there's maybe not a lot of opportunity, or they don't want to do a remote job or something, and they only have these certain openings. I totally get that this is not like, all this advice can't be applied to everyone. So I want to make that clear. And there are challenges with this, but if you have the option, if that is something that you can do and get more clear on, then I think it's a good thing to do. And then also, it's okay to have multiple interests, because, and I know this from my former intern and employee at Alexis Dietetics, Haley Gorski. She is now She has her own nutrition coaching company, but then she works for a TikTok company, TikTok like influencer turned brand consultant company. And she calls herself like a multi hyphenated dietitian because she's a creator, she's a coach, she's working in communications and TikTok and social media. And that's great. Like you can do multiple things and have multiple interests. And then use your first 5 years to explore. This is just from my experience of being now 15 years in as a dietitian. I hopped around to a lot of different jobs in my first 5 years in order to figure out, where are my best strengths? Where do I want to get really good at? And I always asked myself, whenever I was in a job, do I want to get better at this? Do I want to grow my skills in this area? And if I didn't, then I would want to move on. So the smoothie shop, do I want to run more smoothie shops or a bigger smoothie shop? No, I didn't, for me personally. And so it was time to move on. And I would, pursue and try to find the next gig. I did a lot of things as I was running this company because this Alexis Dietetics never was full-time for me or couldn't be full-time until maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And up until then, so that was like the first 10 years of my career, I was balancing this and also trying to piece together part-time jobs. So I was able to bounce around and see, okay, I did writing, I did speaking, I did corporate wellness, I did private practice, I did sports nutrition, I did food service, and I just was trying to see what stuck for me. And really what stuck for me was having my own business, but it took a while to get there. So. And finally, you will have multiple dream jobs as you progress in your career. And that's where I knew when I left the Chicago Bulls that job was past Jenny's dream job, not future Jenny's dream job. And so you will see that your dream jobs will shift as you move on in your career. I know it's really hard to see now because everything feels very unknown and you don't know what the next 10, 15 years of your career will look like, but I'm just trying to pass on the wisdom that I'm probably got something similar to this when I was a future dietitian. And I think it's really important to hear that because this field, there's so many opportunities and things, it's amazing from that standpoint, but also you're like, it's sometimes hard to find what it is that really lines up with you, but you just want to keep researching, keep trying things, and keep moving forward, knowing that you're trying to do what's best for you in that moment and what your quote dream job is for you, for that version of you right now, and that it might change. Okay, so that's my little wisdom pep talk speech thing that I wanted to share because I don't want this to feel like there's pressure to get that dream job and to think that there's only one. It's kind of like dating or like finding a partner. It's like there's no the one job that if I get this job, everything will be great. It's really a lot more nuanced than that, and kind of like how life is in general. So all right, now I will take some questions here if you want to throw them in. We have some long questions that I have to read through, but as you're putting questions in, and then we'll get into that whole Q&A section, I just want to make some announcements here. So the RD2B Summit that we have every year, we have it every August. That registration is now live, and you're able to register for that. So we're very excited. That'll be our 4th annual RD2B Summit. We usually have about 2,000 students register for that. A few, close to 500, if not more, will be live for the event for the people that can make it. So you definitely want to check that out. That is on our website under freebies on the menu. You can see the registration for RD2B Summit. And then there are more upcoming events, including the Business Boot Camp, which is next month, and then how to get dietetics experience that we'll dive into in May. The Dietetics Club now has over 100 members, and you can join there if you want to attend our first club chat this week and be able to talk and network with fellow RD2Bs across the country, get into the member directory, and be able to start learning from other RD2Bs. And finally, I do have an exciting announcement. So you kind of are getting a sneak peek for being here live and getting this, but so in case you didn't know, which you probably don't know, I started a group practice here in Chicago. It's insurance-based. We have 4 dietitians. We are virtual dietitians, and we're combining the RD with health coaching. So like more behavior change plus the skills of the RD. So we're calling ourselves dietitian coaches. And with that, I am beta testing the nutrition program that we're doing, this nutrition coaching program, because it is different than things I've seen, and we are really wanting to get feedback. And I thought it could be great if RD to Bs did the beta testing for it, because number one, you would get to see what it's like to work with a dietitian who's also a health coach, and experience what it's like to work with a dietitian in general. I think it's important to be on the client side to understand that and what that feels like to work with a dietitian if you have never personally. And it would be all like wellness coaching related. Oops, sorry. My phone just rang. Okay, sorry about that. And then I answered it on accident, so that was good. But yeah, so we will be sending out an announcement for signing up to be a beta tester, and then you will give feedback on the experience of going through this 12-week program. And it's like 30 minutes a week that you would do it, and you'd actually be like a client. But I thought it would just be a cool learning opportunity to be able to see how we're doing it differently, and experience that and have it be kind of like educational. But then you also do help me because I get feedback on the program, and so it's a win-win situation. And it's free, like you would not get charged for, of course, like having the service. So yeah, okay, let me get into the questions. And if you are interested in that beta testing, just email me, Jenny@allaccessdietetics.com, if you want to get into that. But we're also going to send out an email this week with that info as well. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to get into these questions here. And forgive my mess. We had our past class sale, so I'm still sending out a few more binders behind me. From Taylor here, what are some keywords that we can use to find jobs that aren't clinical? Whenever I type in dietitian into job sites, I only get clinical positions. Yeah, so I mean, besides, like, you could be looking at remote positions too, that where you can expand your search, and then I would say remote, but then also director of nutrition, nutrition educator, wellness coach, what else? Nutritionist. You can search dietitian with a C, since there will be job postings that it'll be spelled with a C. If anyone else has any others, let me know, but it'd be that. And then trying to find local job boards, not just the national ones, that might have more local opportunities, besides that they might not be paying for national like job board listings, or, you know, bigger companies. And I will also add, actually, I didn't talk about this, but a very underutilized thing that I recommend to new dietitians is to get in with recruiters. So you can join talent networks for free for recruiting companies. So dietitian recruiting companies who will then like try to find you a job, and it's free. So it's like headhunting, but the employer pays the headhunter or the recruiter. And people don't do that. New dietitians don't do that. But if you just search like dietitian recruiting, you'll be able to see that. And then you submit your resume, your profile, and you're in their network. And then you're able to get alerted when there's new jobs, and they're going to try to find jobs that would match you. And then there's nutritionjobs.com. And then big employers like Sodexo, Aramark, you can get into their talent network so that you're alerted just directly from the company when they have openings. All right, does it look bad, or do you have less of an advantage when applying for a job if your internship was mostly clinical? No, do not worry about if you had a clinical focus, community focus. You pass the RD exam, you are eligible for a job in any entry-level job of that's available in any specialty. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. I see what you're saying. You're asking if you want to go in a different route like community or sales, but you don't have the internship experience. As long as you have the RD, you can make a case on why you have transferable skills to go into that entry-level sales job or community job. like you meet the competencies for that. But if you can get experience outside of that, like outside of your internship, that would be probably wise to do, just to bump up what you do have in terms of exposure to that area. All right, and then lastly, in your first 5 years that you're exploring different careers, does it look bad to employers that you're job hopping? I mean, not anymore. Job hopping is so common and even strategic if you actually want to keep getting paid more. That is definitely a strategy, and I would don't look at that like that's a bad thing, because just with how our world and culture and everything is changing, I would say job hop if you truly like didn't want to be there and you want to explore something else, like 6 months, a year with the job. Yeah, I think you have to like do what's best for you as well. So I wouldn't worry about that. All right, and then we had some comments here. Glassdoors may show you some jobs you don't see on LinkedIn or Indeed. Upwork has freelance gigs. And then there's Facebook groups. Yes. So there's Facebook groups like the Unconventional RD Facebook group is huge. There's a Virtual Assistants for Dietitians Facebook group. And then you have your local associations that also can have jobs. All right, next question regarding sports nutrition. I've been interested in sports. I feel like most sports jobs are with football or basketball. Oh, interesting. Yeah, in college, yes, because those are the ones with the largest budgets to staff more of a performance team, including a dietitian. So yes, I do feel like that's the case. You would try to be looking for a job title. If you didn't know this already, it would be called Olympic sports in college. You'd be looking for an Olympic sports dietitian for a college. Yeah, but CPSDA would be they have their own job board, and would be where you could try to find that. And then you're thinking of like smaller colleges that might just have one dietitian, but then you just have to see what sports they have there, where you could still get exposure to that, but maybe there's less athletes in general, so the dietitian sees more sports. Whereas bigger colleges, they have multiple dietitians, and they might have like a dedicated basketball dietitian, a dedicated football dietitian, a dedicated Olympic sports dietitian, that sort of thing. What would your advice be on asking other professionals you may be shadowing, or perhaps a preceptor, about their salary currently and throughout their career? Lexi, great conversation, or great question. Yeah, I would totally ask for that. I should add that as a piece of advice, because there needs to be more salary transparency. I think there was always this whole thing when we signed the code of ethics as a dietitian, there's something around price fixing, which would be illegal, where like dietitians all said, hey, we're all going to demand X amount of dollars, and it was going to price fix the whole dietitian industry. That would be illegal. And that's why some dietitians are just afraid of sharing, because they don't want there to be price fixing, but it's actually not the case. You are able to share what you make and have that transparency. And I think even states are requiring that the salary be listed on the job posting now. So yeah, I'm hoping that will all change, but I think you can definitely ask that in a professional way that gives them the option to not answer, to say like, if you're comfortable with this, I've been just doing research, like what's the starting salary range that I can expect? What's the salary range I could expect in 3 years, 5 years? What's the maximum, salary that you think this role would be able to have? So all those things would be appropriate to ask. Whether or not you get an answer is just dependent on if the dietitian wants to share that, but absolutely, you should ask that. What are some of the easiest entry-level dietetics jobs to get into? I just think for this, it's probably more where there's a need. I think that would be like healthcare, inpatient, long-term care. That would probably be where I see the most, but yes. What kind of work from home RD positions are you seeing? I'm seeing a lot of, so like my group practice, for example, like we will be hiring virtual dietitians for that, like across the country, not now, but maybe in the next year or so. So I see that. So like being able to get your virtual, like your nutrition counseling skills up to speed would be a great way to be better for that, or even getting a health coaching certification, which I have a lot more to say on that, but it is great in terms of differentiating yourself in the counseling space and adding those skills. Lots of dietitians already have the dual certification for that. So I would say that's where there's like a lot of movement in virtual nutrition counseling, and then companies are hiring a lot of those. And then what else? Work from home virtual assistant roles as well, where you're working for dietitians. And yeah, telehealth. Sometimes in healthcare, you can have work from home roles as well. I have a dietitian on my team who worked for a large medical system, and her whole job was work from home. She was a bariatric outpatient dietitian. What would you advise for those that are international graduate students that want to work in the US? That is complicated. I would say my only piece of advice there is it really just it's really just about, with like the work visa and everything, that you would need to talk to the employer to make sure that they would be okay with that. Unfortunately, I don't know any more beyond that besides just working directly with the employer, but it is possible for sure to get that. All right. How do we advocate for an increase in salary? I mean, when you're accepting a job, and just know that you're negotiating for the next person who takes that job too, in addition to you. So if you can ask for more, 10% more, 15% more, then that just helps keep increasing the price of what the HR department thinks that role is worth. Now, there are some jobs where they will be like, we can only give you this, and that's unfortunate. But if they're willing to negotiate, then you want to negotiate for sure. What dietetics role would you advise if you are interested in cognitive and psychological areas, as well as motivational interviewing, health coaching? Look into the NBC HWC, that credential. I'm getting in the training right now personally, and it absolutely dives really deep into motivational interviewing, the trans-theoretical model of change, all the behavior change, positive psychology, all the things that are so helpful for a healthcare professional, not just a dietitian, but like in my cohort, for example, are doctors, nurses, dietitians, trainers, all these other, outside of healthcare, but it's really, really good. And then of course you can get a graduate degree in health psychology as well to go even deeper, but this credential is awesome. All right, someone said they found wellness and health promotion to be good search terms. That's great. Oh, lots of questions here. So I'm going to try to keep going. We are past the hour, so if anyone needed to hop off, I'm sure people already did. Thanks for staying, and thanks for being here live, but I'll just answer a few more of these and then wrap up. Could you perhaps give some information about taking the RD exam if you're located outside of the US? You can take the RD exam. There are testing centers outside of the US. I would go to Pearson VUE. Pearson VUE is the testing center that is contracted with the academy. You could probably just go to like Google CDR RD exam and see the RD exam page on the CDR website, and then you'll be able to go to Pearson Review to see the testing center locations. And then from there, I would call one that's local to you and then talk through how that works. The health coaching certification I'm just going to give you the acronym. So it's NBC HWC. And I'll type it in here. And then it's nbhwc.org. And I'm very into this. And this is what the dietitians on my team will be getting, because they're going to be able to combine their education and assessment skills as a dietitian with the behavior change, psychological, like counseling skills and coaching skills on the health coaching side. Okay, I'm just trying to keep up here if I'm missing anything else. Thoughts on getting a dual grad degree or perhaps even a PhD? There's a PhD now, and there's DCN programs. DCN, Doctorate of Clinical Nutrition, is also something I would say talk to people that already have the dual degrees of what you're thinking. You can search that by searching dietitian in those credentials in LinkedIn, talk to some people that have that and find out what they think, if they thought that that was the right choice for them, or if they would suggest something else. I would say I can't say that. I literally don't even have a graduate degree. So I can't speak too much to that personally, but talk to someone that has that exact combo so that you know you can get that firsthand advice. Okay, I think okay, I think everyone got that wellness. I typed the wellness coach certification, and the company that, oh, you know what? I just sent that to one person here. And Well Coaches is what I'm doing, but there are like 140 different programs. But Well Coaches is probably the one I've heard the most people getting as dietitians. What are your thoughts about taking 2 gap years to gain experience before doing your master's? A lot of people are doing this. I'm not sure, because I think it depends on your background, but I am more about getting to the credential as soon as possible. I know some people financially, they need to make money and they'll do that and then go on. But in terms of just getting experience, I would more often than not, I'm saying get into the RD program and get the credential as soon as possible, because then you'll get even better experience, from there. And they're not those graduate programs, especially if you're a career changer, you don't have a lot of experience. They do tend to be less competitive than more traditional dietetic internship programs. So yeah, I think getting to the credential, if you can, if there's not a financial reason why you need to, stall your timeline, or maybe there's a mental health reason and you want to stall your timeline too. So there's that, but I would say get the credential as soon as you can. Okay. So that's all I'm going to do tonight. We went over a little bit, but thanks so much for the great questions, the helpful tips that you guys had for each other, and be able to, I'm glad we were able to have this discussion. We talked about a lot of different topics, all in the future dietitian world. So I'm glad you were here and contributed and were able to have this great conversation. So if you missed anything, you can get the recording, and yeah, feel free to give us any feedback. And like I said, with those announcements, we have more events coming up, and also that beta test for my group practice, which I'm really excited about, to get RD to be involvement in there. I do kind of have this vision that I want it to be a teaching practice. So this is kind of the first step in that, to be like, hey, just do this program as like a way to learn about what the program's like. And then I want to be able in the future to have people actually have a fellowship or like learn how to have a private practice, like through my practice. That's my dream, because I love future dietitians so much. But yeah, that's it. You guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for coming.